And here we are. Good afternoon, everyone. And Happy New Year. I don't know who's here yet. I see Margaret and nobody else has said anything. So, anyway, welcome. Oh, I see there's some people here. Welcome. Thanks for coming on this cold January day. Ooh, what a perfect time to have a YouTube event. You don't have to go. Hi, Avis. You don't have to go out in the snow and the sleet and the darkness, depending on where you are. No, you're at home. You've got your cup of tea or a hot toddy. You like my cup? Hot toddy for your watching pleasure. Um, so thank you for all you people who are coming, and think of questions and ask them right away because I'll get to all of that stuff as quick as I can. Hi, kid. Um, yeah, just go ahead and write your questions in the little chat box there on the. Well, it's on my right. I think it might be on your left. Not sure, but go ahead and write that, and I'll get to them. I'll go back and do that because I'm going to natter on here for as long as I can. I'm gonna wait for a few more folks to show up, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna do the reading first, the reading of this guy, because I want to make sure that I have a voice. That's iffy when I have a voice. By the way, this is hot tea. It's not liquor, or I'd never get through this. Anyway, we're gonna be talking about this fellow. There he is, and one or two or three of his wives. He's like an actor. He could have had lots of marriages, except that those actors' marriages usually end a little better than Henry's. But yes, go ahead and whatever you think of. And when I do the presentation and the reading, that might cue some questions in your mind, and go ahead and type those in as well, because I want to be able to answer those questions for you that you have on your mind about the writing, about this particular book, about this series, about the characters in it. So, yeah, feel free to go ahead and ask those questions. But while we're here at the beginning, let's talk about the giveaways. Prezzies. Okay? So these are the things you will be at the appointed time when I tell you will be competing for. And this is one of them. Isn't this pretty? It's a nice soft embroidered ornament of some kind. You can hang it on a tree, I suppose, a Christmas tree, but you can put it on the wall. You can keep it up all the time. It's really nicely done. Very well done. I didn't make it. I bought this. Other things include there's this little enamel pin of Catherine of Aragon. She says, "No way, Jose." She could have said Jose, I guess. She's Spanish. I have a feeling this is from the musical Six, which I have not seen and probably won't. And then, of course, the ever popular this pin. This is a pin that looks very like. See if I can do this with everything backwards. Right there, Anne Boleyn's necklace is that bee with the drop pearls. This is very popular. So this is cool. So those are things that you can ask for, because at some point during this adventure, I will be saying, and now it's time. If you want to be in the raffle, in the running for one of those things, you will go to jerrywesterson@gmail.com, put in the subject what the thing is, and then much later, after we're done here, I will do my number generator and pick one of you people as the winner. And you can be anywhere. You can be in another country. That's cool. I will send it there. So everybody's welcome to try to win. So thank you and welcome, new people. Dana says it would make a lovely marker on your shelf to denote where it starts. Where your shelf starts? Where what starts? I don't know. She will explain that in a minute, I'm sure. Okay. Other things that I do when I'm writing, just to let you know before I really start, I listen to music. Sometimes it helps me get into the mood. Usually I like it quiet, and I don't like lyrics because I don't want to start singing along. I want to not hear that. I want to do that. So there's several CDs. This one is from the court of Henry VIII. Some are songs written by him. He was a very Renaissance man, very Renaissance-y. Music for Tudor kings, Henry VII and Henry VIII. So there we go, with a picture that's really not about either of those eras. So anyway, yeah, it's always funny when you see that stuff. So here we are. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm looking at the microphone thing, and I don't know if that's telling me, but I don't know. Oh, you mean the books? You mean the books? I have all of them so far with signed bookmarks. There you go. Okay. Okay, yes, they are very cool prizes. Other places will have similar but other things. So I decided not to try to ship the breakable object. So, because other ones are little glass ornaments. So those are not going to be shipped because I'm not stupid. And for those of you who are following my drama about the iPad, the Apple product, I did indeed find my ID and got into it, and I'll be using it a little bit today. Yeah, that ID was right there in front of my face, right there. It was yelling at me, going, Jerry, you idiot! Here! Didn't see it. Did not see it, but I found it. So, I'm an idiot. I know it. I know it. I know you know it. Okay, so so here we are with the Twilight Queen. This is the second in the King's Fool mysteries, and boy, there's I thought the Crispin books were heavy on research, but oh boy, these are even heavier. And boy, I try to get it right. I think I made a mistake in the last book about getting some character mixed up with another one. Sorry. I do make mistakes. I'm an old person. I make mistakes. But I try, and it's just so chock full of the real people that are characters in the books, and making sure their motivations would have been correct for the time, and making building a story around it. So the stuff that happens to Anne with this investigation didn't happen, but could have. And that's what historical novels are all about. And of course, because it's a mystery, there has to be somebody who's killed. So, that happens. And in this case, it's somebody fictional. Is there a fictional murderer? Maybe. Maybe not. You'll find out. So I'm going to read, I'm going to read this passage while I have a voice. So I shall do that now. This will is already been going around the palace. And by the way, this is, are we still at Greenwich? I think we are. Yes, this is Greenwich, Palace of Placentia. The first book was set there, and I thought the third book would be in Hampton Court. It's not. It's still in Greenwich. And that's because of when things happen. So the third book is still in Greenwich. Hampton Court, we think of that as Henry VIII's palace, the one he always spent time in. But that's not really true. He loved Greenwich the most. He was born there, and he spent a lot of time there, and it was his favorite. But it will depend on what's happening in the books and what what time frame, things are set. Because I like to have a little basis in something happening at that time, going on in the book in the background. So we may never leave Greenwich. I don't know. We could, but it'll require taking a little boat. But anyway, so we're going to start here. This is I don't need my glasses to talk. This is a moment. Will Summers, our court jester, our reluctant sleuth, is running around the palace because there's been a body found in Queen Anne Boleyn's. There she is, me. Queen Anne Boleyn's private quarters, and that's not good. No matter what situation it is. She's already worried that Henry's losing interest, and he is. And she's already given birth to Elizabeth. We know that. And so a body is the last thing she wants, and she doesn't want anybody to know. So she calls upon Will to get rid of it because he has solved a murder previously in a previous book. So he does his bid, and now he's charged with finding those people responsible for it. And so there have been added things to make it look like quite the conspiracy against Anne, and he's trying to solve that. So here he is. I proceeded and poked my head into various doors until I found Henry at last, sitting for Master Holbein in one of His Majesty's dungeon chambers overlooking a courtyard garden. Master Holbein was a quiet, cautious fellow. His English wasn't the best, and so perhaps he was shy of speaking too often. His odd coiffure of straight across the forehead fringe was possibly emulating the style of a cleric, or perhaps from a Basil style his countrymen favoured. In any stead, his severe head, his rustic beard, and his penetrating eyes made for a man not easy to approach. But I was not just any man. Master Holbein, I announced, capering into the room. Henry had been trying to maintain a serious facade, but he couldn't help but smile on encountering me, which made Holbein turn and scowl, though he quickly dropped it with a shrug of resignation. Henry couldn't keep a straight face when I was nigh. I considered it a great victory. I came close to the oak board onto which a large paper was pinned. The artist would sketch out the likeness of his sitter upon it, refining with chalk and pencil, and drawing out certain details that he would sketch in later. But I loved to come and watch him when he painted it on the board, and how the witchcraft of simple ground pigments mixed with certain pungent oils could become a sparkling jewel on a gown, or a whisker on a beard, or the velvet of a bodice. It was nearly the only time I would stay silent, watching the miracle of paint in a master's hand. He brought the faces of court around me to life, as if I was looking through a window. The magnificent portrait he had painted of Queen Anne, one of his patrons, was herself in all her beauty and wit, witnessed through the paint of her eyes and the gentle upturning at the edge of her mouth. It used to hang in Henry's bedchamber, but now it is gone from there. When I edged further into the room, I noted Lady Jane sitting there, reading a small book, a book of prayers. Was she contemplating the sin of adultery? And here we all are, I said, bowing low to them. Lady Jane looked up and lowered her pointed chin in a chaste fashion. The lady was excessively pale, almost sickly, in my eyes. She did not seem the kind of woman that Henry would like about him, but her manner was decidedly different from loud and sometimes shrill Queen Anne. Perhaps that was what Henry had now preferred, her company. Lady Jane, my wife, is looking for you. She wanted dearly to show you the stitches you so admired. Lady Jane looked toward Henry, seeking his permission, of course, and Henry nodded magnanimously. She closed her book and clutched it in one hand, and she grabbed his skirts and swept from the seat. She curtsied low to the king, gave me a nod, and left our presence. A bonny wee creature, isn't she, Harry? So demure, so quiet. He gave me a warning look and repositioned himself on the chair. A man likes a quiet woman on occasion. Oh, I don't doubt it. Now take my Marian. She's a loud creature. It's will this, will that. But I'll tell you, there is nought like a woman who loves and adores you, even a fool like me. Any woman who would put up with you must be a martyr of a wife. I came up to him and leaned with my arm on the back of his chair. That is too true, Uncle. Holbein cleared his throat. Oh, forgive me, Master Picture-maker. I must not become part of your painting. I stepped away from the king. Why not? Said Henry. Holbein, you should make a place for Summers here in some of my portraits. Holbein looked to be caught with his hand on stolen goods. His widened eyes were frozen until I rescued him. In something else, Uncle. Not this one. Master Holbein has already worked it out, and your magnificence crowds out anything else but you. I'd have to be perched outside the frame. Henry chuckled. Another time, then, he conceded. After a moment, Holbein dared approach his sketch once more and made corrections. When will you be done here, Harry? Don't you wish to play? He faced me, but his eyes focused back on Holbein, and he kept his head still. Play? I have business of state to conduct, you rogue. Business of state? Cromwell can do that, or Charles Brandon, or Nick Carew, your newest guarded knight. Henry's eyes darted toward me, but still he kept his head from moving, much to the relief of the sighing Holbein. Only the king may perform business of state. His minions only do as ordered. Just as I do, Harry, I said with a bow. I could sing, or how about a jest? There was a man who owned a donkey, who ate everything. He tried all manner of methods to curb his habit, for the donkey would eat his rope, the wood of the stall, even the man's cap when he wasn't minding. Until one day the man tried not feeding the donkey any food at all. What do you suppose happened? I can't imagine, said Henry with a smile. When he realized he was smiling, he returned his expression to a flatter one. Well, the damn thing died of hunger. I've had a great loss, wailed the man. Just when he had learned not to eat, he died. Henry couldn't help himself. He laughed, and Holbein lowered his arms again and stood back from his sketch, sighing. Settling himself back to rights, Henry smirked. You are making it difficult for poor Master Holbein here. Not at all, your grace, said the man himself in heavily accented English. By the rood, he could speak. I am ready to prepare the board. Henry rose and stretched. Then it's time to get me muscles back. He twisted his broad frame one way and then the other. Wine, Summers, do the fetching. I glared at Nosewise, my dog. Can you not do the fetching? You're good at it. Nosewise cocked his head at me, for he couldn't fathom what the devil I was saying. No, Summers, you. Get yourself a cup. You can sing for me, though I see you haven't brought your lute. I can sing without it, Uncle. And I hurried to the sideboard and poured each of us some wine. It was that sweet, golden stuff from Spain. Spain may not be in favour these days, but there was no reason to blame the wine. I handed him the cup with a flourish, and he toasted me before drinking. I sat on the windowsill and drank. I must confess, Harry, I am troubled. Troubled? What could you be troubled about? You're always merry. Merry I am, but I still worry about this and that. That murdered musician, for one. Who would have done such a thing? His own merriment fell. That's not something you need worry over. Oh, but I do. I spent a lot of my time with the musicians, Harry. Where do you think I learned my songs to entertain you? They are a merry company, and as talented with their instruments as Hans is with the paintbrushes. It is in the hands of the captain of the guard. There's a rumour. Henry's attention was full on me now, and he leaned in. What rumour? He asked quietly. There was something found on him. A piece of jewellery, it said. What of it? He growled. Oh, nought. Only that it hadn't belonged to him. The rumour was that it was given to him. But I know for a fact that this could not be so, for he didn't yet know anyone at court. He couldn't have been given some expensive object. He had not yet even played for the Queen, and she only gives coins, never anything else. A working man, such as a musician, or a jester for that matter, would much rather have the coin to bring home to their wives. No, if the rumour is true that he had anything out about him, my contention is that the one who murdered him must have put it there for some vile, tricksy reason. Henry's face was like a man standing near a window when the sun comes from behind the clouds to shine upon it. I had never seen him look this way, for relief flooded his eyes. You are certain of that? He whispered. Of course, Harry. I took another draught of the wine and finished it, licking my lips. He was too new to court. Came from my father-in-law's household, in fact. He was a trusted man. It's a sad thing indeed. And then trying to sully his name with this act of devotion. It's not to be borne, Harry, not to be borne. No, it isn't. He said it as if to himself, and I saw that my ploy had worked. Anne was safe, at least for now. But that didn't mean I couldn't rest on my laurels. No, indeed. I needed to find the cur who'd done this, for if one plot went awry, they'd only try another, and who knows who would be in danger next. There we go. All righty. So, that's that. Fun stuff, eh? I really wanted to get Holbein in there because, you know, he's amazing. I have a book that I was reading about him, and just he was doing his own thing because this realistic approach to painting really wasn't quite popular yet, but it was growing more popular on the continent and other places. And he's so meticulous and detailed that we really feel we know who these people were, what they looked like, what they were wearing. I mean, the little pearls and the little embroidery, so detailed. I can't even imagine it. But yeah, he was quite the picture maker, as it is said. So he's he was a wonderful part of the court. He wasn't there all the time. He was going back and forth to the continent, but he certainly made an impression when he was there. So I got him in, and he may come back because he's there a lot. So okay, I think that we should give something away, don't you? And I think that we should start with this little enameled pin. It says, "No way, Catherine of Aragon." It's pretty big. I mean, it's pretty substantial. You can use it to close a sweater or something. I don't know. I have put. I think I showed you a picture of the stabby bearer, the capybara with a knife that I got at Christmas time, and that's on my purse. It's permanently there on my purse. So if you would like to win this, go to jerrywesterson@gmail.com and say you would like to win the enameled headdress pin. How's that? Headdress pin. And I don't know what you're talking about. Don't say just pin because, we've got the other one, the Anne Boleyn, the bead one. So that's your first one. And I will go look at all that later. And somebody will be notified that they have won that pin. All right. So what's next? What is our next piece of agenda? Piece of agenda? That's what I'm calling it. Tea with lemon. Give me a voice. All right. We're going to move on to let us look and see if you have any questions here. And I'm asking you, ask questions the whole time. And I will go back and we'll look at the questions and see if there are any things to answer. Am I planning one book per queen? Yes. There will be only 6 books in this series. It's hard work. So only 6. So one, well, we kind of cheated because in the first one, it's Catherine of Aragon and Anne. In the second one, it is Anne and a little Jane Seymour because there is overlap. All of these women, Anne was one of the ladies in Catherine's little court, because they have their own court of ladies in waiting and maids of honor, and so what goes around comes around, because in Anne's court is Jane Seymour, who was also in Catherine's court. So Catherine's and Anne's, and so goes around comes around. So yes, one book. Sachet. It's not really a sachet. It's just a. Nope, no smell. Guess you could cut it open and put something in there, but there's no smell in there. Okay, so we'll move along. Yep. Okay. Was Henry changed by each wife? Well, it's kind of hard to say, I guess. He had a happy marriage with Catherine of Aragon. They were married for 23 years. And he had this happy marriage, and until an heir, the female heir, and I'll talk about that in a second. But everything, it could have just gone on that way, because they grew up together. They were kind of happy together, and then this thing happened. It's just so terrible. So I think he I guess he got different things, or he expected different things from each wife. It seems like Anne was kind of a little brasher, and maybe he was feeling that way at that time, and thought, I really want a woman who's got some spirit. And but then after that, and let's be clear, Anne was demanding and perhaps shrill to his ear. And here's Jane Seymour, who is not that at all. She's very quiet and very obedient, and all the things that Catherine and Anne were not. Catherine was the daughter of Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. So she was a princess. She fully expected, to sort of rule with her husband in a way, So there's that. So he got something from each wife. Jane Seymour, he got the quietness. He got a son. And Anne of Cleves, he learned to get out of it real quick. But I think it's interesting, and we'll talk about that when we get to Anne of Cleves. But Anne of Cleves was the only one foreigner that he didn't know, because he knew all of these other people because they were in the court already. He just looked around and said, she looks pretty good. And I think that made a huge difference, that he felt that he knew them. They were citizens, they were fellow English people. And Anne of Cleves was not. And they didn't understand each other. And, he decided, it seemed like a good idea when he saw that portrait, but they didn't do it. Holbein didn't do a 3/4 view of her. And apparently she had a little bit of a nose there. And that kind of bothered him. I don't know. Lots of things bothered him. Mostly they didn't speak the same language. So that was a problem. So anyway, is there any significance of the items on the book jacket? Well, the dog, that's Will Summers's dog. He didn't, we don't know. He's been painted with a dog, but we don't know his name. So that's Nosewise, the dog that I gave him a name. This is a Jester hat. What's the rest here? Tudor Rose. And another shield of some kind that I don't know who that belongs to, but yeah, it's royal court kind of stuff. So, I mean, I like it's a nice cover. They do a good job on the covers. I'm very pleased with that. All right, let's see if I can get this thing rolling. Our little explanation of. And now that I know the passcode, ta-da, there we are. Alrighty, so the real Anne Boleyn from Coquette to Queen. Everyone seems to love Anne Boleyn. There are groups on Facebook devoted to her. There's organizations all over the world. People love Anne Boleyn, and I think it's partly because of the way she was treated. Let's face it, she was charged with treason, adultery, incest, and then beheaded. And none of that was true. None of that was true. I'm pretty darn sure that she never committed adultery because she really understood royalty and line of succession and all that important stuff. And she never would have messed with that. But I think people, because of that, and she was a very charitable person. She was playing the role of a queen, and one of the roles of a queen was to be charitable, to create hospitals for people, for the poor, and places where they can go and get healing and whatever. So she was doing all that. But she also had a slight vindictive streak about people who were her enemies, people who didn't want her to be queen in the first place, didn't want her to marry Henry. And she remembered all of that. And so she was no saint. And I think but she was not a pawn either. Maybe until it was too late. So anyway, so Anne. And there she is. There she's behind me, but there she is. Let's see if we can see this better. There she is. The only kind of portrait we have left, it might be a portrait paint, is obviously not a Holbein, because it would have been far more detailed. People are not sure where this came from exactly. It might have been painted based on one of the Holbeins, and he surely would have painted her portrait. And I mentioned that in the book, but we don't know. He probably painted one. Probably would have been a nice one. But pretty quick there, Henry got rid of it. And either people took it with them or it was just destroyed, as these things happen. But Anne Boleyn, she was the daughter of a minor noble, Thomas Boleyn. And she went to the Netherlands to be to learn to comport herself as a courtier. She learned languages, conversation, mathematics, even politics, kind of like a geisha. And it was a finishing school for princes and princesses. It was all over the place. Everybody knew about it, and lots of princes and princesses went. In the household of the Archduchess Margaret of Savoy, daughter of the Emperor Maximilian I, the Holy Roman Emperor, and that's her. People queued up waiting to get in. It was a popular place to be. It was the place to go. And then next, Anne was placed in the court. This is all for training, you know. This is Queen Claude of France, to learn the French way of things. Now, Anne loved it. The French court was the continent. Italy and France were already in their Renaissance, beginning of the Renaissance. They were very Renaissancey early on. England took a little longer. Henry is kind of on the cusp between medieval and between Renaissance. We have the full blown Renaissance with Elizabeth, but England is kind of still wandering around. But Anne loved it. She loved. She learned to sing and dance and play the lute, all very Frenchified. And when she got back to England, the French poet Lancelot de Carle said of her, "You would never have taken her for an English woman in your manner and behavior, but a native-born French lady." High praise, I guess, right? So, so when she got back to court, she went to her finishing school and she was finished. she caught Henry's eye immediately. And remember, Henry's not the fat guy that you see in those later portraits of him standing there like this with feet apart and all that. He was he was a looker. He was a handsome fella. And yeah, he was brawny because he loved exercising. He loved wrestling and hunting and dancing, and yeah, he was an active guy, jousting. So he really enjoyed that, and he cut quite the figure. He was very handsome. So let's erase the big fat Henry out of our minds for the first several books and focus on a younger, more handsome Henry. Ginger-haired, beard. Okay, so forget what you've seen on TV. So Anne caught Henry's eye because he'd already dallied with Anne's older sister, Mary Boleyn, and she gave birth to his bastard twice. Or so it was rumored, because Henry wouldn't acknowledge either of them. But Anne seemed to learn that lesson early on. Give in to your lover and get pregnant, and you are no longer worth the hunt. This was particularly true for Henry. So she played the coquette, encouraging him, but never giving in like her forgotten sister. And this, well, she was lady to, let's see if I can get this not glaring. There we go. To Catherine of Aragon in 1521. There's good old Catherine there. So, Anne was not relaxing. She had suitors. She had a few suitors there. James Butler, and he was the 9th Earl of Ormond, and an unnamed man in Wolsey's household. Then she was betrothed to Henry Percy, Earl of Northumberland. But she started having an affair with Thomas Wyatt, a poet and diplomat. Now, unfortunately, he was already married, but he was separated. His wife didn't understand him. Yeah. So once the king seemed interested in Anne, Cardinal Wolsey, Thomas Wolsey, and there he is. He's the one that built Hampton Court for himself and gave it to Henry in the vain attempt to avoid going to prison and being executed. That didn't work out very well for him. He just died. But anyway, during this time, Wolsey is still alive, still working for Henry, stopped her betrothal and this nonsense with Wyatt, and he was trying to make smooth sailing for Henry, but not as a wife, as a mistress. It soon began to consume Henry that perhaps, just perhaps, because he probably had people whispering in his ears, he could get himself a legit male heir with someone else, because he never should have been married to Catherine of Aragon, his brother's widow. This idea started in the early 1520s. By the mid-1520s, Henry was besotted with Anne, and she kept on going by blowing first hot, then cold, then hot again, but never giving in. She was pretty well read and knew what was what, and she and her father blew past the idea of her as a mistress and wanted the golden ring, that of queen. Problem is, Henry still married to this lady, Catherine of Aragon. So, you know, moving on there. Now the wheels of the great matter, as it was called, the great matter, began in earnest. In 1527, Wolsey opened the secret trials of the king's marriage, but others in court were strictly against Henry's divorcing his legal wife, the one with the heir already, Princess Mary. Now, what's the big deal about why couldn't Mary just be the queen after him? It's perfectly fine. She could have been queen. I mean, she was in the line of succession. She would have been queen had he stopped all this nonsense right away. But there was sort of a deep psychological problem with this. A woman being queen would need an heir, and that meant she had to marry somebody. Now, according to the church and common ideas, the man was the head of the household. So if she was the queen, but he was the head of the household, is he post facto king, or is she taking orders from him, or is he taking orders from her? So that becomes a little kind of gray area. And if she was a devoted wife, if she's thinking she was a wife first and not queen first, then she would defer to a king, her husband as king, probably, as Mary the First sort of did. But it goes back even further than that. It goes back to Empress Matilda, or Maud. She was the daughter of Henry I, who was the son of William the Conqueror. So we're going that far back. Henry died and had no other sons. So that meant Empress Matilda was now the queen. She was in France because she was the wife of the Holy Roman Emperor, and then he died, and then she married one of the Anjous. And so she was in France when she heard, and so she was on her way back to England to rule. Well, her son, Stephen of Blois, was decided that I'm going to be king. Country needs a man, not a woman. So she was on her way back. He was headed her off at the pass, and there became a civil war. And if you read the Brother Cadfael mysteries, it was during that time period when there was this civil war going on. She lost, Stephen succeeded, and that was the last time there was a queen until the Tudors. So Henry had to get, if you remember, dispensation from the then Pope Julius II to marry Catherine because she had been his brother Arthur's wife. Now, Arthur died not very long after they married. He was sick at the time, too. Kind of a sickly kid. And Catherine had always maintained that they had not consummated their wedding. This has become important. And here's Pope Julius II. Isn't he a happy fella? Painters saying, "Smile, smile, your holiness." I am smiling. Yeah. Not everybody looked great in their portraits. So Henry, lawyers came into it. It's always trouble when lawyers get into it. Lawyers and theologians. God help us. God save us from those guys. So Henry had lawyers who were trying out Leviticus, which said, in so many words, there will be no issue if you marry your brother's wife. Now, in Latin, it says there will be no issue if you marry your brother's wife. But the theologians and the lawyers are trying to say, oh, no, this Latin is not quite right. It means there will be no sons if you marry your brother's wife. But Henry had a bastard son who didn't live past his 18th year. But he also had lots of other issue. So, there, even in Leviticus there, he still had issue. But they tried to get that through, but that wasn't working. So nothing was working. In fact, Henry lost faith in Wolsey to get a decree from the current Pope Clement VII to divorce his wife. And little wonder, because Clement VII was being held captive by the current Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, who happened to be Catherine's nephew and definitely against the divorce. So he had Dr. Stephen Gardiner, former secretary to Wolsey, and Edward Fox, provost of King's College, Cambridge, all working on this stuff. Lots of nope from the Pope. How could he even consider a divorce for Henry, no matter what the fees would add up to? Because after all, every time you commission, you filed something to the Pope, you have to pay a fee. When his predecessor gave Henry a dispensation to marry Catherine in the first place. So they came across this Cambridge instructor, Thomas Cromwell. He joined Henry's team, saying that he should focus on the reason question, common sense, what the common man would think, and took it to the universities for a trial, hoping that religious scholars would have a more reasoned say. But that went badly. So now it's early 1530s, and Henry starts to get talked into the idea of Protestantism by Anne, because she's read some interesting takes on it. And here's Martin Luther here. And years before all this, Henry was called by the Pope Defender of the Faith because he wrote a treatise against Martin Luther and his Protestantism. But now, maybe it seems like a good idea. And there's a lot of anti-clerical thoughts in England anyway at this point. Priests and bishops taking bribes, for instance, with their vows of poverty. Also, tithes from the laymen either went into the cleric's pockets or get sent to Rome. Why is it going all the way to Rome? Tithes from laymen. Why is a foreign prince, as they called the Pope, getting their hard-earned pence? So Lutheranism is already creeping into the British Isles, has been for a little while anyway, all on its own, with a push here and there from the king's men now. So by 1532, Henry is finally getting some headway by threatening the Pope with reform like Luther, or just swerving around him. So much so that at Anne's urging, or so was said, that after Henry and Anne make nice at the French court to urge them back to Henry's divorce, Henry and Anne have a secret wedding on 14th November 1532 in Dover when they returned. Though legally, Henry is still married to Catherine, but who cares? He finally gets to bed his longtime mistress. And besides, he's a divorce at this point is going to be a done deal, because now he's kind of taking charge of this. So they also had a second wedding on the 25th of January, 1533, still 4 months before their legal divorce. But it becomes clear to Anne that to have it all legal in England, she wants a coronation, because she definitely wants to make sure that she's not only pregnant, but can give birth after the divorce. If she's got a crown, then she's got a bigger legal leg to stand on. So Anne is getting pretty bold now, making sure that Wolsey goes down, because he didn't get her the divorce in quick fashion, and stepping on her other enemies that tried to get rid of her. Also making enemies of people that champion her, like Cromwell. But finally, once Cranmer was made Archbishop of Canterbury, it was all over but for the crying. He was now the Primate of England, because on 12th April 1533, on Easter Sunday, Anne finally appears for the first time in public as queen, with all the splendor any queen could have ever wanted, except for the love of the people, because they were still on Catherine's side. And if you can imagine marching through London and trying to make a big deal of it, and nobody's cheering. So this is a Victorian image of all of that, and there's Anne under the canopy there, marching through. But that's not the most interesting thing that I came across. Kind of a very cool thing that I came across. Why won't that? There we go. This parchment. This is contemporary to the time. What this is the seating chart for Westminster Hall when they have the big banquet. And there's Anne, a little sketch of Anne under the canopy of state, and people sitting there on the dais. We know who's going to be up there. But on the tables below, on these guys right here, it's saying exactly who's sitting where. This is really cool. I just think that's really cool. You know, hopefully you're still in, you're not out, right? Okay, so so on the 15th of April, 1533, Archbishop Cranmer opened the Third Inquisition in the divorce in a remote location. Catherine wouldn't recognize the proceedings, refused to attend, and it was finally legitimized. I mean, like I said, it was a done deal at that point. No Roman Pope, no fees to Rome, no nothing. It was officially 6 long years once the machine got rolling, but several more years prior for the teasing and the ideas to begin to percolate. 6 years of envoys going from England to Rome and back again, encouraged but still empty-handed. Envoys were fired and new ones appointed. One main player arrested for treason, Wolsey. An opponent arrested for treason and executed, Thomas More, and others appointed to higher seats of power, Cromwell. But even this presentation that I'm giving to you is an oversimplification of a very complicated issue. This particular Game of Thrones, the one thing Anne couldn't machine was that male child that Henry wanted so badly. Would that have saved her? Probably. Probably never would have gone through all this trouble. Why? Why would he if he had a male heir that lived? In fact, Anne wanted to make sure that their child Elizabeth was the one and only heir. So Princess Mary was already demoted to bastard. She wasn't called princess anymore. She was now called Lady Mary. What else could she be when her mother's marriage to her father was canceled and called illegitimate? So that made her illegitimate and out of the line of succession. And this angered Anne's enemies because they knew this was a farce. They knew she was legal, that she was not illegitimate. So after a while, Henry brought Mary back to court, a young woman now who should have been considering what suitor to choose, but she was kind of poison at this point. Let's see if I can see that. Now she's this one right here. Poor Mary. Not only was she delegitimized and a not suitable suitor, but she was not a princess, not an heiress, and really treated very badly by Henry. And he had to do that because of all his legal stuff. And he once doted on her. And how sad it was. So now Mary is forced to serve Princess Elizabeth, the little Elizabeth there. Can you imagine how that made her feel? So Anne, unaware of that her enemies were now gathering and smelling blood in the air, failed to take proper precautions. She thought she was safe now, that she wore a crown. But didn't she recognize that what she did to Catherine was coming home to roost? Even though Thomas Cromwell, and here he is, Thomas Cromwell, had championed Anne to Harry, she made him an enemy. She didn't like the way Cromwell seemed to push Henry around. She didn't like that his anti-French policies. She didn't like that he was pushing a reconciliation between Henry and the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor. And he was trying to push Mary back into the line of succession. Anne liked being a Protestant. She didn't want to go back to Catholicism, and she liked being queen. So, yeah, check out this lady killer. But anyway, then Henry was losing interest because, already losing interest because, one, no male heir. Two, Anne was kind of a bitch, kind of no fun to be around anymore because he liked to chase, but not so keen on when he caught. And three, he was already eyeing his next conquest. He even said when he saw Anne's ladies in waiting, "Why do I marry so quickly when there are other beauteous maidens at court?" And here's a little cartoon that goes with that. If you could see that, it says, "We want her in by midnight, understand? And by thunder, you better be married before you even think about cutting her head off." Henry on the dating scene. So Anne was now on her downward spiral. Another one of Catherine's ladies, which was also Anne's ladies, caught Henry's eye. And this is Jane Seymour. And she was pushed before Henry by conservative nobles who hoped that she would return the king to Catholicism and put Mary back in the line of succession. But and once Cromwell started the rumors of Anne's infidelity, even with her own brother, come on, it was pretty much on to wife number 3. And there we are. And all of those, the sad tale. It's a sad tale. It is a sad tale. And that's kind of why it's kind of fun to have Will Summers, here's my little Jester hat, Will Summers involved because he lightens it up a little bit. There's some sad things going on. So let's see what we have in terms of questions or comments. I don't think he got crazy. I just that whole thing about him being unconscious for 2 hours, being knocked off his horse during a joust, and that it gave him brain damage and he was different after that. That really didn't happen. Number one, the people that who stated that and wrote letters to the continent weren't even there. They weren't even there. They never even witnessed it. And Eustace Chapwees, who was the ambassador to the Holy Roman Emperor, he was there. And he said, it was a good thing Henry wasn't hurt. He never said anything about him being out for 2 hours. He wasn't out for 2 hours. And that wasn't a pivot point that changed him either. I think he just got all kinds of stupid information from people who were pushing him in all different ways. Remember, he was quite young when his brother died. And he was the spare. He wasn't going to be the king. And suddenly he is the king. And everything changed. He couldn't play anymore. He couldn't do all the fun stuff. He had to learn all this other stuff and become the king. And that's a lot to put on a young person. The people that you trust may not be trustworthy. And so I think it all changed him through all these different things that were happening, coming at him from all directions. He hated to read letters. He hated to study for things of state. That's why he had all these other guys doing it for him. He wanted to go hunting. He wanted to have, jousts and entertainments and all of that. He wanted to play. And as king, he could. But, he got lots of information. So I don't think that he went crazy. I think that he got so screwed up from the things, the contrary things people were telling him and what he wanted. And it really began to screw him up badly. So Ah, yeah, it was a long time for that one to stay married. To stay married, 23 years. Yeah, royals until quite recently married for life. Yes, yes, they did, despite what heirs they had or did not have. So let's see. Wasn't it her brother? And that was yeah, and that was one of the people they. I mean, that was going over the top, an incest with your brother. Come on, that's I don't know, insult to injury. No, he wasn't bad looking when he was younger. Nope. Um, wasn't Mary also prevented from seeing her mother? Yes, Mary. They were separated. I mean, it was all the cruel things to try to make her, Catherine, agree to a divorce, and she never would. And poor Mary, she later, in order to be brought back to court, she had to take the oath of succession that the king is the head of the church, and she didn't believe any of that, but she had to do it anyway, just to get going. Catherine Stowe's Mary was not allowed to see her as punishment to them both for not going along with the divorce and the deprincessing, yes, bastardization. So how old was Henry when he married Anne? Oh gosh. I think that around this time he was near 40. Because I think he died when he was 55. These are things that I don't have in my head that I have written down elsewhere. So that's, yeah, it did really suck for Mary. Sure did. And the kingdom. I mean, like I said, England was pretty ready to be Protestant at this point. Most everyone. But, these are huge upheavals. You have no idea. And when the monasteries were closed and all the monks and nuns were retired from it, they got a pension, by the way. They weren't just kicked out. They got money to live their lives. But because they took a vow of chastity, they weren't allowed to get married, which was sucky too, because now they had to live basically a lot of them lived together as if they were in a convent to support each other. but uh, but it wasn't just them. There were tons of people around these monasteries who worked at them, who relied on that work. Not just the pensioners, the retired people that paid to live there and be taken care of. They had to get out. Who was going to take care of them now? And the people that worked there. I mean, there are people that farmed and grew and raised sheep and sold the wool to the monasteries and the abbeys, and they lost out on that. So there was a lot of financial upheaval going on all over the kingdom. So it's pretty bad. So you know what? We got to give away stuff because time's a wasting. We're already at 3:00. Sorry, I took a long time. Let's give away the B pin, and that's big too. So you can wear it on your hat, you can wear it on your shoulder. It could be a hat, a pin, a pterodactyl. So you can just go ahead and email me for that one, jerrywesterson@gmail.com. Say you would like the B pin. What else would you like to discuss here? I'm looking to see if I had something off to the side. I don't. That's my new banner, my new pull-up banner. Only the king's fool can help the queen. Very dramatic. I do enjoy writing about Will Summers. He's finding all those evil jokes, like the one, the donkey. These are all most of them are real jokes and riddles that I found. I made up a few, and I will continue to make up a few because there aren't that many, and some of them just aren't funny at all. They're not funny. I don't know. The sense of humor in those days was not great. But so that was happening. So anything else? Any other questions? Any questions about all that? I'm glad you all could come, by the way. I have a cover reveal coming soon for The Mummy of Mayfair, my Sherlockian book, which is coming out in July. This next book in this series, I think, is going to be out next January. Wish I had a title for you, but I keep on vacillating what that title should be. So, but it's about Jane Seymour, and there's a murder, and Will Summers is solving it. What a surprise. And I hope you'll enjoy it. I only had one contract because, money is scarce. And I have a contract for one book in the Will Summers series and one book in the, and there it is on the, behind me on the bookshelf. The Isolated Seance, the Irregular Detective Mystery Series. And people need to buy those books. Ask your libraries to buy those books. Please review those books. Don't just do a rating. That doesn't. When you review, that helps other readers. So it explains why you said 5 stars or 4 stars and not 3 stars, 4 or 5. All right. Why you gave those ratings, and it helps people make a choice about whether they're going to buy that book or not. So, make it a nice review. So we need those reviews. We need those sales in order for the publisher, Severin House, to want to get more of them. All right, you've already requested your public library to purchase all of your books. Yes, Dana, go for it. Everybody can go for it. Tell your libraries if they don't have, check to see what they've got already and say, hey, I really like this King's Fool series. You should have that. And I market to the libraries. That's one of my main marketing things to the libraries. So, because I know that that's my publisher is really aiming towards libraries rather than bookstores and such. But I do have some bookstore appearances. The next thing that's happening is January 11th. Let me look here. Yes, I'll be at the Flintridge bookstore in La Cañada, Flintridge. That's a Thursday evening at 7 p.m. So you can come and see me in person and win more prizes. It's just like that. And then after that, if you're a person who lives in Orange County, go to Book Carnival. It's a lovely little indie bookstore. So is Flintridge Bookstore. Hardly anybody, they don't get the attention that they deserve because they're Romans is the big one in Pasadena. La Cañada, Flintridge is right a hop, skip, and a jump away. So go to them. They could use some love. And Book Carnival in Orange, the city of Orange in Orange County. Book Carnival, I will be there on the 13th. That is a Saturday at 2 p.m. Again, in person. And then the next big one is on the 28th of January. It's a Sunday at noon at Lucky Baldwin's. That's the one at the pub. That's a ticketed event. You have to contact me because that will be a fun event. It's all inclusive. You get the book and you get a lunch and you can go and get some beer. That's not included in the price, but you have to pay me first. And there's only a few seats left. So hurry. Email me at jerrywesterson.com or just PayPal me to that one. $74. That's what that costs. So lots of fun things, including my anniversary this month, 39 years. Okay, anything else? I know I live a long way away from a lot of you. That's why I do this. I was ahead of the pandemic. I was doing this a year before that all happened. And happily that I did. Because now here we are. I don't do it on Facebook anymore. Remember when I used to do it on Facebook? I've been in Facebook's jail so many times for, do I open my mouth inappropriately? Yes, all the time. That I figured, what happens if I'm in Facebook jail and I'm supposed to be doing an event on Facebook? So screw that. Let's go to YouTube where it's always open. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, and it's fun to have people from all over, well, the world, if you want to stay up late enough. I know it pisses off the Australians, but I just can't find a good time. But if you're in England, you could be here as well, and I hope you are. So, okay, let's stop yammering and let's give away this last guy. Let's call this the plushy heart. Do 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 do. The plushy heart. Give him the plushy heart to Jerry Westerson at gmail.com. And if there are no more questions, because I just talked and talked and talked. Facebook was glitchy too for the live chat. Yeah, why didn't? Yeah, it was. Just, I don't know, but it wasn't. I didn't do the live thing, but it was just like a. It was just like a chat event like this is going on the side here. This chatting that's going on. That was sure easy though, because I prepared it all ahead of time and I just copied and pasted on what I was going to say and all the pictures and stuff. But so this way I get to just yammer. So I'm not going to keep you much longer here. I'm hoping that if you had any questions about anything, looks like you're pretty good on your Tudor history. You know a lot about that. It's very complicated. It's like the least thing that I like about writing about historical stuff is the politics and all that goes into it, because it's just so intricate and interwoven, and but I managed to simplify it for the readers, because I needed it simplified for me to understand it, and it's all through Will's eyes, so even simpler. You know what he can glean from what's going on, because he sits in on the Privy Council, and he's allowed to do all that and take away what he hears. So I don't know. Do I have anything else? All right. Well, we don't have any other big questions, or you can of course ask me on my Facebook page at any time. That's cool. Put a question on there. I'm happy to answer that. But I thank you for coming today, and I think we're going to be done. I'm going to be looking at my emails to see who wanted what and who gets to win, and I will announce that on Facebook. So hopefully you're all on Facebook. If you're not and you win, I will try to find your email somehow. I will find you. I'll get Liam Neeson to find you. So there we are. Hopefully you can come to some of these other events, and happy reading. I'll see you all on Facebook again. Thanks for coming. Ta-ta.